My name is Denise Alexander, and I am the head of school at the Bronx Charter School for Children.
Hi, my name is Carolyn Lashley. I am the Dean of Culture and Families here at the Bronx Charter School for Children. I am Mr. Ahmed's support person. I support him in his lesson planning, in his lesson execution, etc., etc.
I'm Zach Marshall. I'm one of the ESL teachers who work closely with Mr. Ahmed in integrating our English language instruction services.
My name is Justin Howard. I am the science teacher here at the Bronx Charter School for Children.
Hey! My name is Mr. Burns. I am the art teacher here, and I am currently going over stacks of paper and sorting them.
He settled in for the camera. That's funny, that was the opening comment. That's all Thank you guys for coming in today. Welcome. I asked you guys to come in today so that I could present to you some information that I uncovered when doing research over the last few months.
Sorry, your phone's not working.
Okay, it's alright. We got that one too.
Close the door because the elevator's like.
Shots and stuff. Alright, so the course objectives are basically to train you as a researcher, as an action researcher, someone who can get to the bottom of any issue, uncover any information that they desire, following a process, the action research process. So my presentation for you today is called Technology Integration, and it's a study about the impact of integrating technology with other subjects. Okay, so just to start us off, what is technology class? Excuse me. Technology class is taught around the world right now in schools everywhere, from national curriculums to international curriculum, using the ISTE standard. Now it's a private group, they just developed a set of standards and people have been adopting them. The core curriculum standards have been much later than these guys to adopt Okay, so the focus is not on the standards. I'm just giving a little background info on how technology classes have developed over recent years. And like I said, these guys have really taken the lead on developing the standards, and that's what most people are using. And essentially, even though there's a lot of standards, there's two main components of learning technology in school. And that's learning how to use and analyze and develop technology, and also learning about technology as it applies, as it pertains to humans and civilization. So the implications of technology on people. So what is integration? Anyone who studied or has some background in education will know that the term integration basically means collaborating between subjects or creating connections between different subjects. So you might have integrations, for example, in science and art when you're drawing anatomy. You'll refer to some science facts, but you'll also use art skills and so on. So why use technology integration then? Well, to sum up what the research basically conveys is technology integration is a special tool because it's very easy to connect every single subject to technology. Also, connecting any subject to technology makes the learning of that subject more fun. And the research will show that integrating technology with any of these subjects will accelerate student growth and performance. So the research basically followed this path. So if we looked at the research on a grand scale, months worth of processes and steps, we'd see the layout look like this. The section one is the literature review, and that's when you're just uncovering basic information, you're reading literature, you're doing basically research on the internet and at the library to find out what others have already uncovered on this topic. So you'd read and analyze and reflect on various sources. The second part of the research process was the procedures. So if you're going to do a research experiment, like a long-term thing that's going to take weeks or even months, you would lay it out in a plan, and that would be the procedures, the plan for the procedures of the study. The third section is the plan versus implementation. Now, it's probably unlikely that any long-term plan you develop is going to play out exactly as you planned it, which is why after you implement it, you'll reflect and write about what happened during the actual research versus what you planned. And then the fourth section would be gathering all the data that you collected and laying it out in as many cross sections as you can to show useful information. So you might tally and report the data. You won't really analyze the data. You won't really talk about the implications or anything. You just want to present the numbers as they are. And the fifth section is when you analyze that data. That's when you dig into the data for meaning. You try to find out what the data means, how it can help you. So you formulate analyses, you formulate conclusions, and you create recommendations based on that data. The action research experiment that I developed, basically if I just were to sum it up visually or very, very quickly and briefly, it would be study the results from two groups of students, groups being classes, so you'd have, for example, class A or class B, and you'd start with one, and you would basically, this would be your control group, meaning there would be no change, curriculums would carry on as they normally do. So if this class or group A was doing the isolated curriculum, they would just take, for example, their social studies classes completely unlinked, unrelated to technology, and the other group, for the same set of time, and as closely as they can, take the same content and learning material, but somehow integrate the two classes. So that would be by the teachers planning together, by having students do some of the work in one class in preparation for work they would do in another class, by having projects that use content from both classes and skills from both classes in order to create the project. So that's how you would integrate, really closely integrate between two classes. And the focus of this research between technology and another class. So the social studies was kind of a random selection, but probably one of the more difficult ones, just because it's a topic that has a lot of reading and it's usually a challenge for students, a lot of dates, a lot of history. So that's why social studies was chosen. If we look at the results summed up very briefly from the research, we would see that Group A, taking pre-exams before any of the course material was presented, before any of the activities were done, we would give them a test before any of the material was taught, and then the same test, practically identical, after all the material was done. So if your period was a 3-week window, you'd give them the pre-exam and the final exam after those 3 weeks. Within those 3 weeks, there would be classroom lessons, activities, projects that students worked on in class, questionnaires, and so on. And also teacher observation forms, where the teacher is not just collecting, quantitative data, like yes or no, wrong or right answers, 6 out of 10, 7 out of 10, but also qualitative data, which is, oh, this student was not doing well because he normally has behavior issues, or whatever the case may be. That gets factored in as well. But the data in the end showed that Group A, which used no integration, had students go roughly, show a roughly 50% increase from the start of the period to the end of the period. So, for example, if there was a 10-point quiz, the students might score an average of 3 out of 10, and then by the end, an 8 out of 10. So that would show the 50% jump. Projects, overall, the grade is about a C, and given maybe a small curve, maybe a B, with 78% being the average score for students on their projects. Again, not using integration. And these surveys by students would indicate overall low morale about the work period. It was hard. No, I wouldn't use this again on my own. No, I would not make brochures. No, this skill is not useful to me, and so on. Now, lower is a very vague summation of that. It just basically means that overall the approval by the students was lower than when the survey was taken for Group B. Group B showed 70% roughly of group using integration, and their projects showed an average score of about 86%. Not a huge percentage high, 7 or 8% higher than the projects that they did in an isolated manner. But their surveys really indicated that the students thought that the work was more important, that it was more interesting to them, that they would use these skills again probably in their lives. And they just found it generally easier to make connections between what they were learning in school and what they were learning in what they're doing in real life, just because the work they were doing was shared between two classes. Okay, this gives you a little more insight into those survey questions. These surveys did indicate that students like technology integration more. If we look at these bar graphs here, we can see that there's sections for each graph which just show you, the colors are a little washed here, but you can see, for example, the smallest section are saying not at all to question 1, and question 1 may have been something like, would you use these skills again, or did you enjoy this project? All of them are positively phrased, meaning the more the answers lean towards yes, and you can see a lot of these large yes chunks, the more students generally approve of the work. To conclude, integrating technology class curriculum with other subjects increases purpose within the students, incentivizing them to perform well. They feel like there's more of a purpose behind the work. It also, it's a process, integrating subjects is a process that requires very little effort on the teacher's part, but the results are, the rewards are high. This integration method also accelerates the pace of student learning, meaning they can learn more in a shorter time. It does make the learning of any subject more fun for the students, and integrating the subjects and using technology, because of the efficiency it introduces into the classroom, engenders higher order thinking skills, meaning you have more opportunities to ask more difficult questions and to get students to think more critically throughout the learning. My recommendations upon seeing all this would be, first, to use technology integration as often as possible. So wherever possible, teachers of all subjects should be linking up with technology teachers, and vice versa. Technology teachers should be reaching out to the other subject teachers as often as possible to develop as integrated of a curriculum as possible at all times throughout the year. Another recommendation would be to develop higher level tech lab use. And by that I mean the tech lab has a lot of potential if you capitalize on it, and there should be more understanding in how to do that. So that's something to always look into, and better ways to use the tech lab and use the resources. Another recommendation would be to infuse the actual classrooms with technology. So more computer workstations if possible, better projector setups and sound setups, lighting. Also, definitely confer with colleagues regularly. I mean, if colleagues, that's sort of a rephrasal of the first one, I think, but it does have added value to just confer, not necessarily to collaborate or to integrate the subject, but to just talk about what it is students are studying in class, so that you are conscious of it and you're able to make mention of it or draw on connections between what you're studying and what the students might be doing in their classrooms. And that is it. Thank you very much. Thank you guys for coming.